Hey everybody, hey Mount Hamilton. First off, hey Anthony, how you doing?
Hey man, how you doing? I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. Really appreciate you taking the time to come out. It's pretty awesome. We're with Mount Hamilton Youth Soccer Club. I'm club head coach Adam Bond, so I really appreciate you coming out, taking the time, especially over this time, to have the players hear something from you. And so how you doing today, man?
It's great. It's my pleasure, Adam. Just trying to keep busy, and obviously, I'm more than happy to speak to you, and hopefully get through to some of the kids as well. So
Yeah. First off, I'm going to start off. Congratulations on last year.
appreciate it.
I make sure that, when we have training, I try and make sure that we don't have any trainings and game days so we can have all our players come in.
That's tight.
I am in the supporter section myself. That's how we all love watching football, and it's amazing that we have the CPL here. So congratulations for being forever first. And how does that feel?
Thanks, man. And it's good. Obviously, something I touch on when people ask me that kind of question is just like, there's a lot of players who have played at like high levels for a long time and have never won a championship. It's not something that everybody gets to experience. So obviously, it happening in my first season as a pro is incredibly special.
You know what? I have to say, some people would say lucky. I'll say you guys really put that work in and you guys got it done. But it's good that you had a good squad that could get through with that. I have to ask 100%, because I know it's a dream for many of us and many of us watching now. Can you describe that feeling of scoring your first ever CPL professional goal?
Yeah, definitely. So when I started that game, I had wanted obviously to play like a huge part in the inaugural match, and I didn't make it off the bench. And then I actually hurt myself warming up and missed the Halifax game, so the next one. And I remember they asked me beforehand if I was ready to go for the third game. And I was like a little iffy about it, and I was like, yeah, I could probably do a little bit more than 45, something like that. And I turned up to the locker room. My name was like on the team sheet, and I was like, oh, I guess we're doing this then, yeah. And so obviously, like, I was obviously a bit nervous, but and then the first like few minutes just kind of like flew by, and I think I had a couple, like one touch or two touches that were like a little bit missed touches, just out of the nerves. And I think the third time I touched the ball was the time I scored. It was like 4 or 5 minutes into the game. And I guess the best way to put it is just a bit of a relief, because obviously scoring a first goal for any club is important, but scoring your first professional goal was nice and easy to get out of the way. So like for me, it was a bit business as usual, because like once I scored, it was like, all right, we're good now. But for my mom, like I remember my mom was saying, she was in the stands, she burst into tears apparently, because she was just like she was thinking like how much a relief it must be to me,
For sure.
right? So she was like, she didn't want me to have to carry like the weight of like having to wait for that goal to come, and like having it come so early, definitely like it made my life easier as a whole, like with the season going forward.
Would you say it's hard to describe that emotion? Like there's just so much going on. You're kind of like, yeah, like what kind
I
of
was just amped. I was just amped.
Yeah, that's it. You just amped and meet you in the corner flag, right?
Exactly. That's it. I actually remember I had no celebration planned. I had nothing. And like, I just took off, and like in hindsight, like the corner I went to, like I probably should have gone to the other corner where the Park Street Battalion was. And I went to the corner that was like, it wasn't empty by any means, but it was like half filled,
Yeah.
So the moment just kind of like carried me away,
That sounds actually really cool. I think, especially for the players watching now, just having putting themselves sort of in that position and just like envisioning that and visualizing that, it's something that's tangible for them now, seeing someone that's you're from Pickering, right? So
yeah,
around the corner. So your hometown's Pickering. Well, what's your first soccer memory and how old were
you? Man, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I remember I had played one season outdoor
Timbits?
and one season indoor. I don't think it was. I don't even think we had Timbits then. I think it was even before then.
Yeah, I don't remember Timbits when I was younger, but they've come along.
It was,
well.
but we'll just say shout out Tim Hortons, anyways.
Sure.
Yeah, no. My first seasons at like 4 and 5, I was like not any good at football. I was really good at like finding rocks and stuffing them in my shin pads and saving them for later, and pretending I was like finding new gems and stuff. I don't know. I didn't care. I honestly could not be bothered with the ball. It would just kick by me. It would go by me. And I remember being an indoor, like just not even playing. I wasn't even playing. I was just running around pretending I was like a Digimon or something like that. Like I was completely uninterested.
I don't think the kids will even know Digimon now.
That's a huge throwback. That is a huge throwback.
So you were really young when you started playing, obviously, and I mean,
Yeah.
look where it got you now. So what was the first club that you ever started playing for?
So I played my house league in Pickering, and then I also joined the Pickering. I guess because back in the day you had like house league and you had rep teams, right? And they were just divided into the A team and the B team. And I remember I was like pretty good on the schoolyard, but I never played like any actual football. And I missed the tryouts for the A team, so the B team was there, and I went and played for them for like 2 or 3 years, and I spent most of the time in net, most of the time some of it out. And then after that, I moved into the A team as a full-time goalkeeper until I was like 14, 15.
So you started out as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I played in goals through my time in Pickering, and then at U13 I played in Wexford and 14 Glen Shields. But for the majority of the time with those clubs, I was playing in net.
Do you ever take Henry's gloves, put them on, and
hell no. I'm so over goalkeeping at this point in my life. So I was in the regional program, and I made it to the provincial program, and then like I remember they did like a second round of like cuts sort of thing, and they basically said, you're a little too short for this, and we're gonna have to move on, So that was when I officially like just gave up goalkeeping, because like during that time frame I had already like grown in my mind the idea of playing as an outfield player full time, and I was only getting like little tastes here and there, and then by the time I was like 15, I joined the Toronto Lynx. Well, actually, it was at the tail end of U14, but I joined the Toronto Lynx, and that was when I started like playing as a full time outfielder. Then,
so I mean, I always tell all our players about perseverance and showing character and never giving up, and it seems clear to me that when you were cut from a team saying that you're too small, excuse me, and you keep fighting back, it's kind of like who's laughing now, right? You just never give up and keep going forward. So I guess my question would be, what are some more of the challenges that you've had to overcome in your career to get where you are now?
Well, there's one that always like stands out to me, and it's a bit more recent than youth football. But like the big thing now is like obviously in North America we have different kinds of grinds in terms of becoming a professional soccer player, right? There's obviously like the lack of like availability of high level pro specifically in Canada. But in general, like we come from like a very good place, and for a lot of us, we're very, very well off, very privileged, and we're living in a beautiful country, right? But for many people growing up in football, that's not the case. And their hardships are a bit different than ours. And one of the biggest ones that I find coming across like Canadians is players who have always wanted to be football players, and they give up because, they graduate college or whatever it is, and they start like working a job, and it's like probably like a 9 to 5 or something like that. They get a little money, and it's like all of a sudden football starts to take a back seat just because, other people are moving out of their parents' houses. People are starting to move on with their lives. Maybe they bought their first car or whatever. And like, I feel like that's a temptation that like a lot of players like give into. And obviously for me, like I've worked a lot of jobs since I finished high school, since I finished college, pardon me. I've actually worked 8 between the time of like 2016 and now. And last year when I signed for Forge, I was actually working part-time at TD. So like I worked a bunch of like jobs that were part-time and stuff that I could have turned into a career, and, moved out of my parents' house, bought stuff like, maybe a nice watch, nice cars, like gone out more, like all that kind of thing. And it was hard to like watch all my friends like start to progress with their lives, obviously. Right. And obviously football it wasn't right there yet. And I knew I wanted it to be, but it wasn't right there. And it was like, man, is this going to happen? Is this going to come? Like, how long am I supposed to keep working these part-time jobs to accommodate playing football? And obviously
players have that sort of struggle too. And I think you're a clear reason as to, you're a regular Pickering guy. He's working hard, and now you're a professional, right?
Yeah. It's like, it really just goes to show that especially now with the CPL in Canada, that there's more of a path for players, and it's like, don't give up just because those things kind of start to come to fruition. Even for the younger players who are like in high school and stuff, like their friends start to grow up more, like people start drinking and doing other things, and it's like it's very easy to fall into those patterns instead of like, you know, keeping your eye on the goal, because those things at the time like seem more fun and you get to hang out with your friends as opposed to, you know, going to training like 4 or 5 times a week during the winter when other kids are like just doing what they want, you know. And it's just, I think that's like an important thing for players in North America, because like I said before, we are very privileged, but a lot with that privilege also comes other opportunities. And for me personally, like I've worked like a proper job in downtown Toronto where I was making like very, very decent, like livable money, you know? And I was thinking like, oh, like, you know, this would be all right. But at the end of the day, like I just couldn't stick with it. I quit after like 2 or 3 months and started working lawn care again in the summer so I could train, because I was working 7:30 to 7:30.
You're a footballer. You wake up, the football's on your mind. Like
That's
it's
it.
all you can
Like,
do, man.
like what for me, it's always been what else is there to do? And the answer to that question has always been nothing. There's not. I know that if I'm not doing soccer, like I'm not going to be as happy as I possibly could be. And when it comes to like life in general, like I feel like if you're not working a job that you're excited to do in the morning, like for a lot of people, like they're wasting their time a little bit, you know. Like I don't know. I've never grown up thinking like I was gonna be like a recruiter downtown. Like, you know what I mean? Like I had the job, but it was like, this isn't what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can respect that. Yeah.
For me, it's always been football, and I know for a lot of kids, it's always been football. And it's just like, just because it's not there right away, I have to encourage people to not give up. Like I remember my dad provided me like a small article about this guy who was playing in the USL. He made his like debut at like 26, but then by 28, he was like a starting goalkeeper in the MLS. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but like he hadn't signed a pro deal until 26, and it's like, well, now he's playing in the MLS. So it's like, obviously it panned out, you know, obviously like it was worth waiting for.
That's right.
And I just feel like it's like super important to not give in to early temptations, regardless of whether it's high school or post collegiate stuff. It's like football is worth it, man.
I think
football is absolutely worth it.
I think that's a good message to send out, especially now with everything going on, that we have to make sure that we're staying connected. You mentioned something about North America and players in North America, and how we live in a great place, and I couldn't agree with you more. And having said that, a lot of talent comes out of our country. We have a lot of talent in our academy program for sure at Mount Hamilton, and we have a lot of talent at our competitive programs for sure. But now I want you to name top 3 players that you either played with or played against.
Played against. I'm trying to think about it.
You don't have to be in specific order, because sometimes it can be tough. So top 3.
Top 3 players I've played with or against.
With or against.
They played against. As a defender. Okay, so to provide some context, before I was playing the 9 regularly, I used to be a winger. And the toughest defender personally that I've come up against is York Nine's Maury Donor. I'm sure you're familiar.
Yeah.
He was in the team of the year last year. The guy's an animal. He's a physical animal. And I remember like going past him once, and when we were playing in League One together still at the time, and then I thought like I was gone. Just took my foot off the brake. All you usually this guy's like breathing down your neck. He is in incredible shape, and he works very hard defensively, and he also gets up and down the flanks very well. And I just remember in that moment, like I'm a pretty strong guy, and like pushing someone off like is not always something I have to think about. But I'll always remember like having to like think harder about like getting past or like pushing Maury away, because he's like deceivingly strong. And I remember seeing his Instagram story like a few weeks ago. I think he ran an 8K in like 28 minutes or something like that, which is like a 16-kilometer-an-hour pace. And it's just like, oh my god, bruh, this guy's an animal. But like, so as a back, he was the hardest I've played against. I think.
What about who you played with?
Playing with, I think.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a professional player. It could be anybody you've ever played with, right?
I'm trying to think of the fella's name. there was a boy I played with when I was playing with Toronto Lynx, and he's had the most incredible technique. He was a Scottish guy. He came over, and he had some of the best technique I've ever seen. I'll never forget. There was a time when we were playing against KW, and the ball got like knocked off a corner kick, and he was hanging back. He's a small guy, center midfield player, and the ball got like cleared out, and it must have been like 40, 50 feet in the air. And he took it down with the inside of his foot, like popped it up, and then hit the volley, bang inside of the foot volley, all in one motion, and like just ping right on the guy's foot, like who took the corner kick, who would come back onside. I just remember thinking, wow.
It was just one of those moments, right?
His name was Gary something. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then obviously, I got a
guy named Gary.
Yeah, Scottish guy named Gary. I got to show Tristan Borges as well. Tristan Borges is obviously high quality. I think that's obvious to everyone. Be a bit silly if I didn't mention him.
I would agree with that there too, for sure. You mentioned that you're a strong number 9. We all see you out there. You are big, demeanor out there. Is there anything about your game that you like to work on specifically or is there anything about your game that you'd like to work on specifically outside of strength?
Definitely. There's something that like I touch on like quite a bit when I'm like speaking to like younger players or coaches or whatever. And there's always something about a player that makes them valuable to a team, right? Whether it's like, it might not be something to say if you were to categorize it like as assists or goals. It's like certain attributes, And I know for me, like I make myself valuable through my strength, because I know that if our team's in trouble, they can always kick the ball up and they can rely on me to hold the ball up, get them out of a scenario. And obviously that works well with Forge in terms of the fact that, we keep a lot of possession. And when the ball comes into my feet, it's in the final third. I need to be productive in my layoffs and in my hold up play and bring other players in, right? But so I know that that's what makes me valuable. And now while I try to work on that and always improve that and always make that my main threat, like for some players, their height might be something that they use to make themselves the main threat, or somebody like Borges, it's his low center of gravity. The way he's able to keep the ball and be agile and, go past people. But for me, like one of the things that I always try to work on is my ability to check my shoulder and turn in space. Having played the wing my whole life and also having played as a 9, I'm very comfortable with what's behind me typically,
Yeah.
So I'm having not played in center midfield the same way as other players, like looking over the shoulder and turning on the correct foot or turning and running. It's not as first nature as it is for other people. So I feel like at least this year, that's something that I would prefer to like bring into my game a bit more, something that I can offer the team in more of a false 9 sense as well, as not just a target man, right? So that's the thing that like I like try to work on this off season and try to be more productive with.
I like the point that you said about checking your shoulder. I try to relay to our players day in, day out, the necessity of checking shoulders and being aware of what's going on around you. And it's not the easiest thing that even at the top level to have players constantly checking.
It gets harder, man.
It gets harder. Speed is there. You can't always, but that's why you always got to be thinking one step ahead. But thank you for pointing that out. So boys and girls listening right now, professional players still work on checking shoulders. It's not something that just comes. You got to work at it and work at it and work at it.
And that's the thing for me. It's like it checking my shoulder and having that ingrained as a player, just because positionally it didn't require it. It has come like later in my career for me. So like it's not as second nature. So you watch someone like Bex when he receives the ball in the field, he knows where everybody is around him. You never see Bex turn into anyone. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So it's like for some players, like that's just pure repetition. That's just pure being in uncomfortable scenarios on the pitch and just knowing where to play out of them at all times. And that's a good life lesson in general. Is just being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
And like you said that too, because sometimes when you're learning the new technique as a young player, it feels a little uncomfortable because you're not necessarily as comfortable, creating that angle to strike the ball with your laces or whatever it is. So just having that repetition in and constantly, that brings me into my next question kind of thing is repetition is similar to routine. Can you take me on a journey on game day for Anthony Novak from when he wakes up to pregame to after the game?
Definitely. So actually, like game day, like routine in general, I'm not going to say it's more fun than playing, but the feeling of waking up on game day and like getting ready to go through the game day routine is like, it's one of my like favorite things. Like
start the night before? Does it start the night before?
Definitely. So I like to like during the season and stuff, and I'm always on top of my diet. So like I'll eat very clean during the week, and the night before a game I won't eat unhealthy, but I'll just eat more. I'll just eat more and get the pasta and have a bigger steak, something like that. You know what I mean? Like
more of a little bit bigger plate out there. Yeah,
exactly. I know people say things like carb loading and stuff, and like I wouldn't go as far as to speak about the science of it, but somebody just said something like that once, and it's just what I've always done now. And it's like, so on game day, so typically most days I actually fast for the majority of the day. Even like through training in the morning and stuff, I won't eat until like we have our first team meal as a club. But on game day, like I'll wake up and I'll have like a nice, like something a bit more like sugary, something a bit more free. Like I'll have like some pancakes or a waffle or something like that. And then I'll have like my regular like omelet or oatmeal or something like that. And I'll obviously got to get coffee. Coffee comes first,
You need the coffee.
Every day in quarantine, I have nowhere to be, and I still drink my coffee.
Drink your coffee. Yeah, you're not the only one. I may or may not have one off the screen here.
Yeah, it's step one every single day. So I always get the coffee going and then start cooking breakfast. And like just that part of the day, like the cooking and preparing the food and stuff, I enjoy that. And then so like, I'll give myself like probably like 2.5 hours to get ready. Not that like I need all of it, just that I'm comfortable, especially like last year for part of the season, I wasn't living in Hamilton. I was commuting to Hamilton. So I want to give myself like plenty of time to get there as well. Right. I always feel like it's like really nice to show up to the field early and then know you don't have to be in the locker room for like another 10, 20 minutes. Like go grab a coffee or something like a small bagel or something like that.
And there comes the coffee again, right?
I have my second one. I always have my second one of the day at the Tim Hortons on Barton. Just at the video board end there. And I'll always go in and get something there. And then it's just you go through the routine of the game day operations with your teammates and the coaching staff, right? Well, even before that though, you got like I listen to like I have a good time like taking the drive and listening to tunes.
That's what I want to get into. If I was to pick up or maybe you do it right now, if you were to look at your music, your Apple Music, whatever you use, what's the last song? What's the last song that Anthony Novak listened to?
The last
song.
I was listening to the If You're Reading This It's Too Late album, the Drake one, while I was doing all my laundry and stuff.
Okay.
But that was inspired because last night Danny, my roommate, Crutzen, was playing some of the Scorpion album, and I was like, oh, haven't heard some of this Drake in a little while. But honestly, it depends. So like on game day, I could be listening from like anything that's just like enjoyable. So I could be listening to like I could be listening to a hip hop and rap playlist, or I could just as equally be listening to like a classic rock or even like an alternative playlist, like on my way in, as long as like I'm enjoying the music. Cause like honestly in life, that's one of my favorite things is just driving with like good on like a nice day and like being able to play music really loud and sing freely with no judgment,
Something about loud music and, the wind blowing in, well, not your hair.
Oh, it's good.
So
you get that aerodynamics.
Buddy, I'm zooming.
Quicker. But yeah, no, right before the game though, I know like some people like prefer to be like very relaxed, very like chill maybe when they play, particularly someone in Beck's position. Someone who plays in center midfield as a 6 where they have a lot of like responsibility on the ball. Maybe it's better for them to be like more tranquilo, Whereas like with me, I know that I'm going into a battle with 2 massive center backs. So I'll just get myself hyped. I have like a playlist that's combined of like Shaba, Biggie, Disturbed, Rage Against the Machine. And it's just like a combination of like heavier rap and heavier rock, and it's like
You'll
I'll
have to
play that
send
right
me
before I
you'll
go
have
out.
to send me that playlist then, and I'll
Yeah,
make sure
that's
I
a good
play
one.
it for all of our players before the games.
I don't know if it's family friendly.
Hey, we all gotta make sure.
Mom and dad are gonna be like, "What have you got my boys and girls listening to?"
Yeah, we all have the things that make us tick, and it's
Yeah.
good to hear the things that make you tick. I guess we'll sort of wrap things up a little bit here now.
Sure.
Just a fun question: who has the most banter or the biggest joker in the change room out of the players?
Easy. Edgar, definitely.
Yeah,
Best banter.
definitely.
Yeah, he's funny. He's funny.
Good stuff.
I can comfortably say that.
You can definitely say that. Yeah, you're allowed to now. So
yeah, he's a funny guy, man.
just to wrap it up, we have our academy 8 to 12 players, like I was saying, but we also have our U13 and up competitive players. Do you have any advice for these young players, young Canadian players that aspire to play in the CPL one day?
Just honestly, it's just about getting into the good habits early, right? So when I was 13 and when I turned 14, I was grade 9. I knew like my path to pro was probably through playing soccer at a university in the States at the time. And they take all 4 years into consideration, whereas like I know that Canadian universities take in your last 2. So I had to be on my tiptoes from like the very beginning of grade 9. So like I've always had good habits that would like kind of lead me to where I got to. And that's just the right thing, you know. It's like even like in quarantine for myself, like I try to keep all the good habits up that I would keep up during the season. And those things don't come naturally. And the good phrase, like discipline equals freedom. If you can teach yourself to be disciplined and rely on that, then it'll get you a lot further than just kind of the difference between motivation and discipline, if that makes sense, you know?
Absolutely does. Absolutely.
You don't always feel motivated, but you can always be disciplined. You know what I mean? So it's like you gotta just keep the right habits, and when it goes from training to being at home to the way you approach your schoolwork to the way you approach your jobs. You know what I mean? Like even when you're working a part-time job that you don't necessarily care about, like I always just tried to be the best at it. I don't know. I would always that's just the way it works, you know? So it's just about forming good habits and keeping to them, from checking your shoulders and turning on the correct foot to, you know, working hard when you're at home and no one's watching, you know, so.
And then last thing, doesn't have to be soccer related, but
sure.
What's important to you?
Loving what you do. That's the most important thing. And that's why football is important to me. I would never slate anyone for working a job that I don't think that I would like, but all I know is that I've never thought that I would be happy counting someone else's money or recruiting jobs for other people, or I don't know. And honestly, any job that you can think of where like a company profits. Like I've never just wanted to work for someone. I've never wanted to be a part of that 9 to 5 or that regular monotonous grind that I feel like a lot of people find themselves in after, you know, they see a little bit of money. And that's the one thing that's important to me, is just being happy. And I know that last year when I was living at home in Pickering and commuting to Hamilton because we had training at 8:30 in the morning, I had to be there for, 7:30. I would wake up at 5:30. But you know what? Every day, like when I woke up at 5:30, it felt like I was going on vacation, waking up early. Not like I was waking up early to go work at Target. Those days when like I would dread it or choose to go back to sleep and call in or any of those kinds of things, you know? There's nothing hard about it. It just comes easy. And if your work is like that, then because that's where you spend the majority of your time. If we're all honest, you know, the majority of our time is spent at work, which, you know, some people would agree with or disagree with based on the way our culture's set up. But that's the reality that we live in. So if you're going to spend all that time somewhere, I hope that I'm putting 40 plus hours towards something that I care about and something that gets me out of bed in the morning, you know, not something that gets someone else out of bed, you know.
Good. I can agree with you for that. Working in soccer for sure is a blessing to be in this sport. Unfortunately, over this whole sort of break from soccer due to the pandemic, but I really, really appreciate you doing this. So thank you very much. I guess the last thing we could leave it off is for all the boys and girls families, parents, and players watching right now want to make it pro, good habits, check your shoulder,
Check your shoulder.
and love what you do. So thank you very much, Anthony. Appreciate it. And hopefully we can do this again, and look forward to seeing you on the field this upcoming.
It's my pleasure. That'd be great, man. Thank all the Mount Hamilton families for their support as well. We love having them out, and we wouldn't have a pitch to come back to if it wasn't for you guys. So
perfect. Will do. Thanks a lot, Anthony.
Hey, cheers, Adam. Have a good one, eh?